Welcome, everyone, to the 2021 Edwin F. Jekyll Award presentation. We are proud to posthumously honor the late Magistrate Judge Hugh B. Scott with our highest award for his distinguished career. Many thanks to all our generous sponsors who are making this event possible. A portion of the proceeds from the event will be designated to the Honorable Hugh B. Scott Class of 1974 Memorial Fund at the Law School. Our presenting sponsors are Frank H. Ewing and AML RightSource. Bond, Schoeneck, and King. Dunsmore Law. Harder, Sechrist, and Emery. Hodgson Russ. Our gold sponsors are Thomas E. Black, Jr., Francis M. Litro, the Litro Law Firm, Reverend James J. Marr, President, Niagara University, Minority Bar Association of Western New York, and the Minority Bar Foundation. Dean's Advisory Council, UB Law Alumni Association. Scott M. Lupiani and Sheldon K. Smith. Our bronze sponsors are Honorable Philip Dabney, Jr., Honorable Diane Y. Ray. Bar Association of Erie County, National Federation for Just Communities of Western New York, UB Law Gold Group, and Women's Bar Association of the State of New York, Western New York Chapter. A special thanks to our presenting sponsors. We have a brief message from some of them that we want to share with you.
Good evening. On behalf of my colleagues at Bond, Schoeneck, and King, and through our combination with the Venerable Jekyll, Fleischman, and Mughal, the legacy of Edwin Jekyll, I want to echo all the remarks you're going to hear about Judge Scott's first and amazing legal career, all of which are legion and remarkable. I want to pay tribute to Judge Scott for making a significant contribution to the legal profession by being a genuinely good and decent human being. I've known and appeared before Judge Scott and worked with his wife, Trudy, through various bar association and other volunteer events. They were both always willing to participate. I picked my last appearance before Judge Scott as a classic example of his decency and humanity. I appeared with a big law lawyer, our client, and 2 summer law clerks. Judge Scott welcomed all of us to the courtroom and made the big law lawyer and client comfortable with me as their attorney, as well as making the law clerks comfortable by pointing to his jury box, which had a number of UB law students in it, also learning about federal court that summer. He understood the importance of educating our upcoming lawyers. Everyone left the courtroom knowing they were listened to, treated respectfully and fairly. I cannot think of a more deserving recipient of the Edwin F. Jekyll Award. Congratulations. Thank you.
Professor Scott, I wish you were here. I hate that I have to do this over webcam, and I hate that all of this has occurred. You are a mentor, a friend, and the best professor I've ever had. And I think I can speak for all of the class for the LLM year of 2011. Ify, Stephen, Sarah, Shafira, all of us, when I say that you will be thoroughly missed by not only us, but this community. You are a legend, and you will remain a legend in memory. I miss you, and I thank you for everything that you've done for us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. To Dean Fleischman and our many great friends at the law school and on the UB Law Alumni Board, thank you for honoring our beloved Judge Hugh Scott. On behalf of all of us here at Hardesty Crest and Emory, especially those of us who knew the judge well, congratulations to his honor, to his legacy, and most of all to his family. And to Trudy, Everett, and Hugh Jr., thank you for sharing such a tremendous and transcendent treasure with all of us. His gifts will always be cherished.
We are here tonight for the presentation of the Jekyll Award, the highest award given by the law school and the Law Alumni Association to the late Judge Hugh Scott. On behalf of Hodson Russ, our thoughts and prayers go out to Mrs. Trudy Scott, his sons, and his entire family. We at Hodson Russ appreciate Judge Scott's service as United States Magistrate Judge for more than 25 years, and we will miss a judge who was kind, fair, and always a gentleman to everyone who appeared in his courtroom. I personally feel very fortunate that Judge Scott was my trial technique professor 25 years ago. I learned so much from him in that class. Afterwards, as a law clerk a few floors away from his chambers, I saw firsthand the respect that his fellow federal judges, the law clerks, staff, and U.S. Attorney's Office had for him. May his spirit live on in all of us, and may we be reminded of the high standards by which he carried himself and the way that he treated others.
Throughout the presentation, a list of our patrons will scroll across the bottom of your screen. We thank them for their support. It is now my pleasure to introduce our Master of Ceremonies, Michael Battle, the recipient of our 2020 Jekyll Award. A partner at Barnes & Thornburg in Washington, D.C., he practices white-collar criminal defense, anti-corruption compliance, litigation, and federal contracting work. He was previously director of the Executive Office for U.S. Attorneys under President George W. Bush. As U.S. Attorney for the Western District of New York, he successfully prosecuted the infamous Lackawanna Six. He has also served as a family court judge and as a legal aid attorney. Michael, I now pass the baton to you.
Eileen, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, what a thrill it was for me to receive the Jekyll Award in January of 2020, a little over a year ago, and what a well-deserved honor for Judge Hugh Scott to now be presented with this award. His sons, Hugh Scott Jr. and Dr. Everett Scott, are with us this evening to accept the award on his behalf with their mother, Trudy, and other family members. Tonight you will hear from a group of very distinguished speakers who will express themselves about how they felt about Judge Scott. Those speakers will include Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, UB President Satish Tripathi, Dean Aviva Abramowski, and Justice Frank Geraci, Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court for the Western District of New York. Interspersed throughout this program, you will hear from others who will provide brief tributes in pre-recorded messages from some of the judge's longtime friends and closest admirers. And now, our first message will come to you from Lieutenant Governor of the state of New York, Kathy Hochul. She may have attended a different law school, but we have adopted her as an honorary alum of UB Law School.
Good evening. My thanks to the Dean and the Alumni Association for inviting me to participate today. I've had the honor of speaking at the annual Jekyll Award presentation for the past 3 years, since my friend and neighbor, Judge Barbara Howe, received the award back in 2018. The Jekyll Award represents the highest ideals and is given to individuals who've made significant contributions to the school and the legal profession. There is no one more deserving of this award than this year's honoree, Judge Hugh B. Scott. We all share a love of our community and the University of Buffalo School of Law. Many people assume I'm a UB Law graduate, given all the time I've spent there and all my interactions with members of this community. But I did have the wisdom to marry someone who graduated from UB Law, my husband Bill, who's currently teaching a course at the law school this semester. I've had many opportunities to address law students and new lawyers from UB, and my message to them is simply to help people who are unable to fight for themselves. Countless people have endured criminal injustice, social injustice, racial injustice, and economic injustice. As a lawyer, I tell them your very presence and your passion will give people hope and an opportunity for real justice. That was the essence of Judge Scott's life. Judge Scott not only had a trailblazing career, he also had a very impactful life. He made history as the first African-American federal judge in Western New York. In so doing, Judge Scott paved the way for others to follow in his footsteps. And he used his lifelong commitment to public service for the good of the community and to help others. He championed equal access to the justice system, helping those convicted of crimes transition back into society with job training and legal assistance. The judge's reputation throughout the legal community was that he always presided with such grace and dignity and treated everyone with respect in the courtroom. That's a high compliment and certainly reflects the values enshrined in the Jekyll Award, the law school's highest honor. While our community is diminished with the recent passing of Judge Scott, his legacy will live on. He made our community more just, more fair, and more compassionate. To Judge Scott's family, take comfort in the fact that he was respected and loved by his colleagues. He also led others to a better life, from his students to those who appeared before him in court, and for that he left this community a far better place. We are all incredibly proud and honored to have known Judge Scott. And to all my friends in the UB Law community, I always thank you for making me feel such an important part of your family.
What a wonderful message from New York's Lieutenant Governor. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to introduce the President of the University at Buffalo, Satish K. Tripathi.
Greetings. On behalf of our UB community, thank you all for joining us for this wonderful law school tradition. This evening's event, of course, is bittersweet for our UB family and for all who were fortunate to know the late Judge Hugh Scott. I would like to offer my heartfelt condolences to Judge Scott's widow, Trudy, and his sons, Everett and Hugh Jr. While it deeply saddens me that Judge Scott is not here with us to celebrate this honor, I am pleased that we have the opportunity to commemorate his incredible legacy. Simply put, Judge Scott was one of our most distinguished alumni. Throughout his remarkable career on the bench, he was a dedicated champion of UB. A steadfast supporter of higher education, he valued its role in cultivating an informed and enlightened citizenry. And as a member of the legal education community, he greatly contributed to these ranks. An adjunct faculty member at UB for more than 2 decades, Judge Scott taught and mentored countless law students. He exemplified what it meant to be an engaged and distinguished alumnus. In short, an inspiring leader, a highly active university citizen, and a passionate advocate for higher education. Indeed, Judge Scott represented everything that is great about our university and everything we strive for our students to achieve. We were so fortunate to have him as a part of our university family for so many years, and we remain deeply grateful for his devoted service to our law school, our university, and our region. Although we celebrate Judge Scott tonight as the recipient of our 2021 Jekyll Award, we will always cherish his place in and impact on our UB family. Thank you.
President Tripathi, thank you so much for a warm and wonderful message. It is really great to hear from you. You know, as much as those of us associated with UB Law School would like to think so, the fact of the matter is we're not Judge Scott's only alma mater. As we all know, he had to at least go to college first and graduate before he could go to law school. So his first alma mater really at the collegiate level is Niagara University. And here to give remarks in relation to Judge Scott is Reverend James Mayer, president of Niagara University, who remembers Judge Scott as a trailblazer and an all-around great student.
On behalf of the Niagara University community, we join with the UB Law community in celebrating the life and the legacy of Judge Hugh Scott. As an undergraduate student at Niagara University, Hugh Scott was an advocate and a pioneer for racial justice and equity. He was a friend to many and went on to be a public servant. As judge, he welcomed newcomers to the United States. He advocated for the poor and the imprisoned, and he was a role model for so many people coming up through the profession. We join with all of you in celebrating his life, his legacy, his faith, his commitment to service, and we take the challenge that his life has laid for us to be advocates for the poor and the marginalized in life.
Thank you, Reverend. Ladies and gentlemen, the Edwin F. Jekyll Award recognizes those who have distinguished themselves in their career and brought honor to the law school, the university, and the legal profession. There are former Jekyll Award winners in attendance tonight who include Thomas Beecher, Thomas Black, Annie Vanko, Ken Forrest, Professor James Gardner, former Judge Barbara Howe, and Professor and Dean, former Dean, Nils Olson. Another former Jekyll Award winner will now be presented to give remarks in relation to Judge Scott. He is my favorite tax professor, the only tax professor that I ever had, the only person that could teach me tax, Ken Joyce.
By my calculation, Judge Scott began law school at UB about a half a century ago. More accurately, 49 years and 5 months by my calculation. And I spoke recently to a couple of his classmates, Sue Brigg and Rich Toby, that gave me more information about the start. They indicated to me, I'm sure it's true, that they began when the law school was still downtown, 77 West Eagle Street and Prudential. Lou D'Accordo and I used to trek over from the Prudential over to the 77 West Eagle Street, where I began teaching in '64. But in any event, I do remember that he spent time at the North Campus, as Sue and Rich confirmed. That was, I think, their third year. And I have a distinct recollection, even though, you know, when people in their 80s like me, memory does tricks to you. I remember distinctly speaking to Judge Scott right down near the faculty elevator on the first floor of O'Brien Hall. And the reason I remember it distinctly is because As many of his classmates, he was feeling very challenged, even in that last part of his career in law school. But he was equally determined to persevere, and persevere he did and continued to do. And that perseverance has redounded to the great benefit of the law, the legal profession, and the stature of the UB Law School. You know, I always considered the Jekyll Award to be not only a recognition of past achievement, which it is, and for which Judge Scott deserves it, but also a small way for the law school and the alumni to say thank you to the award recipient. And so even though, unfortunately, he's no longer physically present with us, I want to say thank you, Judge Scott, and enjoy the ceremony.
You know, when you graduate from UB Law School, you don't get to become disconnected. It just doesn't happen. And that's because of great leadership from its Alumni Association, which is very active. And it's always had outstanding leadership at its helm. And there is no difference in that continued leadership in the current president, Ann Joint, who will present her remarks this evening.
Thank you so much. Good evening to Judge Scott's family and friends and our distinguished guests. The Board of Directors of the University at Buffalo Law School Alumni Association and the Gold Group are so proud to be joining with the law school in presenting the Jekyll Award to the Honorable Hugh Scott. I, like so many others, stand in awe of Judge Scott and all that he represented and what he has accomplished. In recent months, I've had the opportunity to speak to many alumni who had significant interactions with Judge Scott. And the theme that has run through my many conversations has been that not only was Judge Scott a thoughtful and deliberate jurist, concerned with justice and fairness, but he was a very good human being and was legitimately interested in the lives and stories of those around him. I heard from Brian Melber that Judge Scott's was the most popular trial technique class, and how, before the age of computer registration, students would have to get up at dawn to line up for his class at the school. Judge Scott cared about the legal community and his law students. We are all the better for having known him. David Edmonds told me that Judge Scott gave him a piece of advice as he was beginning practice that has stuck with him, and that he has shared with others over the years. Per Judge Scott, you have three things going into this profession. Number one, the diploma that represents the training you have received. Number two, a certificate of admission to the bar that represents that you are qualified to practice. And number three, your reputation and what your fellow attorneys and members of the judiciary and the community think of you. Judge Scott went on to advise that you need to protect these things with everything that you have, because losing one of them threatens your ability to be an effective attorney. Judge Scott clearly lived these words. Not only did he have a diploma from our favorite law school and a certificate of admission to the bar, he had an excellent reputation, and as a result, a storied career that impacted so many. In closing, we appreciate the example that Judge Scott set for all of us, and thank each of you for being here tonight and for your support of the law school. We would ask you to continue to support UB Law and the Alumni Association as we work to continue to nurture the community to which Judge Scott contributed so much. Thank you, and enjoy the evening.
Madam President, thank you so much. It's always good as a graduate to hear about all the good things going on with alum from my precious law school. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker that you'll hear from is Justice Shirley Troutman. Amongst Justice Troutman's many accomplishments over many years of service, she is currently the co-chair of the New York State Franklin H. Williams Judicial Commission, which promotes racial justice and ethnic fairness in the courts. She is a longtime, close, and very dear friend of Judge Scott.
Trudy, Hugh Jr., and Everett. Hugh Scott, Judge Scott, as he is known in the legal community, was a giant, and he left an imprimatur on our legal community, beginning with my own humble career as an assistant district attorney, because it was before him who I tried my first trial. And my first judgeship in Buffalo City Court is memorialized by a photo that hangs in my office, where he is beaming with that beautiful smile that he always displayed. I want you to know that we honor him because he is deserving of that honor. And in doing so, we honor you. He always did that which was right. In other words, in my view, he was a righteous man. And justice, mercy, all of those qualities, he was a judge's judge. And Hugh Scott will forever go down in history in Buffalo's legal community as the epitome of what a judge should be. Thank you.
Justice Troutman, thank you so much for those heartfelt words. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that Judge Scott was a trailblazer, and he fought hard in his community for fairness and justice. And we all know that you don't take on those fights by yourself. And of course, Judge Scott was probably one of the few people who could have done it by himself. But he fought alongside of such persons as Lana Benetovich, our next speaker, who with Judge Scott worked side by side in our community throughout human relations activities on behalf of the National Federation for Just Communities in Western New York to deal with racial justice issues and community fairness. You will now hear from Lana Benetovich.
It was a privilege to walk alongside Judge Hugh B. Scott at the NFJC locally and nationally, and to walk beside him as a friend. The judge was truly a role model for inclusion. He was patient and outspoken. He was an accomplished speaker, yet an active and compassionate listener. He was a serious and visionary thinker, but also had the greatest sense of humor. I have lots of examples of that. These traits were present in the courtroom, in the classroom, and throughout the community at organizational, educational, and governmental meetings, time and time again. Yes, Judge Scott was known as a committed and outstanding magistrate, but he was also a very devoted husband to Trudy Carlson Scott and a very proud and present father and grandfather, and also a steadfast and supportive friend. It was an honor to speak about his honor. He enriched my life in a myriad of ways. Thank you would never be enough. Though the recognition with the Jekyll Award tonight speaks volumes for his contributions and his leadership in our community and throughout the country. This is a very special award to a very special man. Thank you.
Lana, thank you so much. We all feel in our hearts what you feel in your heart and what you've expressed to us in your comments. Judge Scott was a distinguished member of the Dean's Advisory Council. And the next speaker you'll hear from is Chris Whiteman, who is a superstar in business and has himself been presented with the Distinguished Alumni Award from UB Law School. You will now hear brief remarks from Chris Whiteman.
Thank you, Michael, for your kind introduction. and hello to Judge Scott's family, friends of the law school, distinguished guests, and colleagues. I'm honored to be here tonight, not only as a proud UB Law alum, but also in my role as chair of the Dean's Advisory Council to help celebrate the late Honorable Hugh Scott and his very well-deserved receipt of the Jekyll Award. It is an honor and a privilege to celebrate Judge Scott, who he was and what he accomplished. We are all better off for having known him. Judge Scott was so well loved and well respected, truly a model in every way. He exemplified not only what it means to be a great judge and attorney, but also what it means to be a kind and gracious human being. In addition to the many ways Judge Scott helped UB Law, which we've heard from all of our other speakers tonight, he was also a longtime member, an emeritus member of our Dean's Advisory Council, where he served with distinction and honor. The Dean's Advisory Council, or DAC as we call it, serves as an important role in assisting Dean Abramowski with the law school's top priorities. For example, we are working on recruitment, enrollment, placement, social justice and racial equity matters, mentoring, fundraising, and many other topics relevant to the law school. The council is a national volunteer board created over 3 decades ago. Our members reflect the diversity writ large of our alumni, from practice areas to ethnicity to class years to employers to various geographic areas and more. 2 other of our council members are presenters here tonight, our MC, Michael Battle, and the president of our Law Alumni Association, Ann Joint. The council serves as a sounding board and creative partner for the dean on the most pressing challenges and priorities of the law school, an effective partnership that has positive and lasting impact on our law school. Judge Scott was an extraordinary member of the council, helping in ways large and small, all for the benefit of our alma mater. He freely shared his wisdom, experience, advice, and support with his trademark humility and grace, and the law school, indeed all of us tonight, are better for it. For example, during Judge Scott's tenure on the council in the early part of the 2000s, he was a key part of the council conversations with then Dean Nils Olson, and that resulted in the creation of the law school's signature New York City program in finance and law. That program just finished its 15th session. Judge Scott remains a role model for each of us. The council is but one of the many volunteer boards on which he served with distinction and made a difference. We are proud to have served on the council with him and so grateful for his example and legacy. Thank you and congratulations to the judge and his family. Michael.
Chairman Whiteman, thank you so very, very much. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have taken a little bit of a walk down memory lane, but now we're going to go way back. Next speaker message you're going to hear from is Les Greenbaum. How could you be a lawyer in Buffalo and not know Les Greenbaum? Les was part of a close-knit study group in law school with Judge Scott, who supported Judge Scott and other classmates such as Rich Tobey, Susan Bring Tobey, Robert Pearman, Wesley Taylor, from the class of 1974. What a group. Men and women who turned out to be very distinguished lawyers in our community in their own right. Judge Scott was part of that team. Like I said, we're going way back. And now we'll hear the video.
Hugh Scott brought honor to our profession by making a difference in countless lives in our community. First and foremost, he made a difference as a caring and supportive husband to Trudy, and together they raised 2 of the finest young men you would ever want to meet. He made a difference helping his parents, his brother, and even his somewhat difficult Aunt Della navigate old age and illness. He made a difference in our community with his hands-on service on numerous boards and committees, contributing his time, his considerable talents, and his resources. He made a difference as a teacher and a mentor to literally generations of law students and students at every level, sharing his knowledge and experience freely with them over many, many years. He made a difference as a judge, treating attorneys, court staff, litigants, witnesses, and victims with courtesy, respect, and understanding, sometimes not getting that courtesy and respect back from them, but always maintaining his calm and pleasant demeanor. And he was a great friend to me. I will miss my fun-loving friend, and I will miss our conversations very much. He is most deserving of this high distinction from the law school, and I congratulate his family on receiving this award on his behalf.
Les, thank you very much. And I want to make this clear, folks. This is the only time I'm going back that far. Everybody else, I think that I'll introduce from here on, graduated well after the class of 1974, but what a distinguished group. Our next speaker will be the Honorable E. Jeanette Ogden, who will tell you over and over how much she benefited from the friendship, advice, and encouragement that she received over the years from Judge Scott. And I know for myself, one of the things that I learned from Judge Scott was the importance of mentoring. And amongst her many roles and many gifts and many distinguished honors, E. Jeanette Ogden, Justice E. Jeanette Ogden, is known throughout the legal community as a super mentor. We will now hear from Justice Ogden.
I would like to thank the University of Buffalo Law School and the UB Law Alumni Association for giving me the opportunity to commemorate my mentor, colleague, and friend, the Honorable Hugh B. Scott, United States Magistrate Judge for the Western District of New York. Judge Scott was a role model and the ultimate mentor. If you look at his bio, you'll see that he attended and graduated from UB Law School. But what you won't see is that he returned to the law school. He volunteered, he encouraged and supported others and enabled them to attend and graduate from the law school. And I know this because I am one of the people who he encouraged to attend and graduate from the law school. He would say that I had a responsibility to give back to those who were just as deserving as I was to have the opportunity to pursue their career in law. So I am commemorating my mentor by working hard to be the best judge and the best person that I could be, and to never ever forget to go back and give back. Thank you.
Justice Ogden, a great message, and all the more timely in 2021 as it has been throughout your career and the career of many others. Let's not, none of us forget how important it is to give back. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce Dean Aviva Abramowski, the 19th Dean of UB Law School, the first woman to hold that position, and someone who I will tell you I've known for a really long time. She's a great friend. Dean Abramowski.
Thank you so much, Michael. Welcome and thank you to everyone participating this evening, both those who are here with us in our broadcast studio, Michael Battle and Joint, Chris Whiteman, Judge Tarasi, and Hugh and Everett Scott, as well as Judge Scott's friends and colleagues who have shared their heartfelt memories via video. To the entire Scott family, especially Trudy, Hugh, and Everett, thank you for allowing us this opportunity to come together to celebrate Judge Scott's remarkable life and career. On behalf of the entire law school community, I share again our deepest sympathies on his passing. Words alone cannot express what an exceptional person he was, nor can they capture the power of his legacy. We are grateful to have this opportunity to honor him, and so thankful that you are here with us tonight to help us do so. The Edwin F. Jekyll Award is the highest honor that the School of Law and the Law Alumni Association can bestow, presented each year to an individual to acknowledge their outstanding achievements. Before his untimely passing, Judge Scott was selected as our 2021 award recipient, and I very much look forward to presenting him with this well-deserved honor, as he truly embodied the spirit of the Jekyll Award. While unfortunately our original presentation was not meant to be, I know that he is here with us today, and I feel privileged to be a part of this celebration and his legacy, along with so many members of our community. It was very moving to watch the video messages from Lieutenant Governor Hochul, President Tripathi, and our beloved Professor Emeritus, Ken Joyce, and many others. Each has their own unique story to tell about Judge Scott's impact on them professionally and personally. And though each story is unique, a common thread unites them. Beyond the breadth of his accomplishments, Judge Scott was revered by all for the strength of his character. He exemplified excellence both on and off the bench, and he inspired others to do the same. He shared the commitment to excellence in the classroom, where he taught the art of advocacy to our students. He taught trial technique at the law school for more than 25 years to both JD and LLM students. And in 2002, he brought the first federal trial to the law school's Francis M. Litro courtroom. And beyond the classroom, he mentored dozens of law students and young lawyers, many who have gone on to lead their own distinguished careers, and many of whom are here with us this evening. That includes New York State Supreme Court Justice Jeanette Ogden, who we just heard from. Throughout her career, Judge Scott coached her and encouraged her, and when she was a young prosecutor, he would remind her, and I quote, "The job of the prosecutor is to seek justice, not convictions." There are multiple stories like Judge Ogden's, and the theme is consistently the same. Judge Scott took time to mentor and to help others achieve the greatness he knew they were capable of achieving. He encouraged those around him to be their very best. So many who are here today continue to do the same. His influence lives on. The Jekyll Award recognizes an individual who exemplifies the highest ideals and who has made significant contributions to the school and the legal profession. There is no higher ideal than leading a life that embodies the spirit of justice, that pushes each of us to do our best, to be our best, and to reach back and help others. There is no greater contribution to the legal profession than dedicating one's career to equity and justice. At the University of Buffalo Law School, the State of New York Law School, we are committed to teaching our students to follow and live by Judge Scott's example, to preserve through difficult cases and difficult times, to treat one another with dignity and with respect, and to support each other along the way, to use one's skills and knowledge to give back and to do good. And I know that as we continue to teach our students to follow Judge Scott's lead, he will continue to guide us. His career as a pioneer in racial equity and social justice efforts will fuel our commitment to supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in our law school and in our profession. His innovative solutions, including the post-incarceration reentry court, will serve as a steady reminder of the importance of humanity and compassion in the administration of justice. And his impact on our law school and our profession as a teacher and as a mentor, a jurist and a gentleman, will be carried forward from one generation of great mentors and students to the next. Great people live on through the lives of those who were fortunate enough to know them. Judge Scott will live on through each of us. Tonight, we are privileged to honor Judge Scott's career and his legacy with the Jekyll Award, our highest honor. With sincere gratitude for his leadership and a firm commitment to meet the bar he has set for us. Thank you all for being a part of this special evening.
Abramowski, thank you for those very special comments. You represent the sentiment of everybody associated with UB Law School, past, present, and in the future, as we all remember Judge Scott. You know, one of the words that Dean Abramowski used during her presentation was the word pioneer. And Judge Scott had the opportunity to share being a pioneer with many others. And one of those people professionally was his old friend, Justice Rose Scaniers. And they weren't just professional pioneers, but they became friends. And over the years, they combined family vacations and on a daily basis held each other up and supported each other as early members of the bench in Western New York from the Black community. So you will hear next from Justice Scaniers, who has recorded a video discussing her friend Judge Scott.
It is my honor to say a few words about the life and career of my dear friend, the Honorable Hugh B. Scott, on the occasion of receiving the prestigious Jekyll Award. My husband Les and I were privileged to spend many good times with Judge Scott and his lovely wife Trudy. We were a part of their wedding party and spent time together with them on many trips in the United States and Canada. I recall fondly our trip to Disney World with our kids. Our early career days were spent together as colleagues in the Buffalo Corporation Counsel's Office and the Buffalo City Court. Judge Scott had a distinguished legal career and continued to serve his community in many other capacities until the end. He was loved by all who knew him or just came in contact with him. He will be truly missed. To his wife Trudy and sons Hugh Jr. and Everett, may God hold you close, comfort you gently, and carry you through.
Justice Scaniers, thank you so much. You know, we're at this point, we hear so much about so many things that Judge Scott did in the community, and you often wonder, where does a person find the time to be so busy? You don't just find the time, you make it. You make it because you're dedicated. So he didn't just stop at doing one thing or the other. He was involved on a civic level. After full days on the bench and on weekends, doing what he thought was right, doing what he was taught was right about justice and seeking justice in the community. He spent time with our next speaker, Clotilde Perez-Bode D. Decker. She's CEO of the Community Foundation of Greater Buffalo, and she will tell you a little bit about her friend, Judge Scott.
To know Judge Scott was to love and admire Judge Scott. He was a pillar of this community and personified paying it forward with his humble brilliance, his deep compassion, and his gentle humor. He was very influential in the Community Foundation's work to advance racial equity over the last 15 years. He was a founding member of the Communities of Giving Legacy Initiative. He led the effort to establish free legal clinics for Say Yes Buffalo, and he was a founding member of the Greater Buffalo Racial Equity Roundtable. I'll never forget the day I attended the reentry program graduation in his court. He knew each graduate by name. He knew their families' names. He knew their challenges and their successes. His humanity was truly awe-inspiring. In fact, his innovative work in the area of reentry led to the creation of the new one-stop shop service Link Stop in downtown Buffalo, which just opened this past fall. His legacy in this community, and indeed in our nation, will be felt for generations to come. He will be dearly missed. Thank you, Judge Scott.
Clotilde, great to hear from you. Thank you so much for those remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for the evening, Judge Frank Geraci, Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court for the Western District of New York. Judge Geraci worked very closely with Judge Scott throughout his many, many years as part of the federal bench in Western New York. Judge Geraci.
Good evening. Cornel West wrote, "Never forget that justice is what love looks, what it looks like in public." It was Judge Scott's love, his respect for all people that drove him. He was not embarrassed or shy about demonstrating that dedication through his public acts and deeds. It's an honor to make some remarks about this extraordinary man, the Honorable Hugh B. Scott. The Edwin Jackal Award was described by Judge Les Fascio as a big deal, reserved for the most outstanding members of our community. The University of Buffalo Law School has kept that tradition alive by presenting this year's award to Judge Scott. Although he's not here to accept the award, fortunately, he knew that he was to receive it. The Edwin Jackal Award is the highest honor presented by the University of Buffalo Law School. Recipients have included former United States Attorney Michael Battle, Attorney Terry Connors, Judges Eugene Pickett, Michael Teleska, Vincent Doyle, Samuel Green, Dolores Denman, and John Curtin. Edwin Jackal was a partner in the stellar law firm of Jackal, Fleischman, and Mughal. After serving in the United States Navy, he became very active in local and national politics. He insisted on integrity in party and government affairs and fostered a progressive agenda. The Jackal Center for Law, Democracy, and Governance of the State University of Buffalo Law School focuses on the ways in which law, politics, and the principles of democratic self-governance intersect. Judge Scott was infamous for his dedication to integrity in each public role he played. Hugh Scott was a pioneer in the legal profession, becoming the first Black Assistant Attorney General in charge of the New York State Attorney General's office in Western New York. He was also the first African-American Assistant United States Attorney for the Western District of New York. He was the only African-American judge to serve on the federal bench in the Western District of New York. And prior to that, he served several years as a Buffalo City Court judge. Now, these firsts were achieved not because he was a minority, but rather because Hugh Scott was recognized for his intelligence, his work ethic, and his moral compass. Judge Marion Payson called him an exemplary jurist. Indeed, he was. She also remarked about the fact that he served on the Ethics Committee and was often consulted on tricky ethical issues. He always offered sound advice and was considered the ethics guru. During his career, he utilized his positions to mentor others, encourage others, and help make the world more just. One of his proudest accomplishments was the creation of the United States District Court's Reentry Court. This provided him with the opportunity to encourage those recently released from federal prison to help them realize their potential when they fail to see it in themselves. The United States Probation Officer Tammy Rogers was impressed with Judge Scott's willingness to volunteer his time every 2 weeks for 8 years to preside over the reentry court. During those sessions, he would relate to the participants, provide leadership by providing justice while holding them accountable. She described him as an overly protective parent to those he sought to have move toward a more positive lifestyle. He relished the success of those who completed the reentry program. One participant wrote that Judge Scott was an awesome person. She said he motivated us to start over, and by expressing how we had confidence in our ability to lead a productive life. Another participant thanked Judge Scott for seeing the potential in her that she failed to see in herself. His longtime law clerk, David Hayes, reported that he was thankful to Judge Scott for years of professional and personal guidance. He was saddened to lose who he called his Chambers dad. David wrote that Judge Scott had a gavel in the courtroom, but never needed to use it because he treated everybody with respect and therefore was respected. Those who knew Judge Scott understood how he could command a courtroom without saying a word. His facial expressions spoke volumes. Attorney Cheryl Myers Booth indicated Judge Scott never needed to raise his voice or criticize an attorney. All he needed to do was to give that attorney that look, that Judge Scott look. The curl in his eyebrows spoke for him. The same was true if he was amused by something somebody said. The twinkle in his eye projected his pleasure. During our interactions with Judge Scott, we all witnessed the various facial expressions that demonstrated his pleasure or disagreement. Now, I'm sure that his sons, Hugh Jr. and Everett, experienced other facial expressions as teenagers when they attempted to test the limits of his patience. Judge Scott was always gentle and thoughtful. Clerk of Court Mary Longuth recounted how Judge Scott encouraged her as she began her career in district court. She described him as charismatic and kind. Judge William Scretany provided another example of Judge Scott's kind nature. Judge Scretany reported his father, while in his 90s, would often visit the courthouse. He would always stop by to seek out Judge Scott, imploring him to buy him a cup of coffee. No matter how busy he was, Judge Scott would take the time to make that cup of coffee for Mr. Scretany and engage him in casual conversation. Judge Scretany described this as above and beyond the call of duty. Judge Scott always understood that behind every lawsuit or criminal action, there were individuals who would be impacted by the decisions and actions. He never lost sight of the fact of the human aspects of our profession. He was noted for his calm demeanor and deliberate decision-making. Although he held the title of judge, he never thought of himself as better or smarter or more important than anybody else. His humility only enhanced his reputation and was reflected in how admired he was by all those who came to know him. He respected everybody and never had a bad word to say about others, and therefore others never had a bad word to say about him. He was a caring individual who used the powers of the various offices he held to improve the lives of others. He used his God-given talents to make this world a little kinder. Throughout his career, he's received too many awards to even name. He's been recognized by bar associations, community groups, educational institutions, and many local and national organizations. He was generous in sharing his time with the legal community and the community in general. No wonder he was nominated for this prestigious award. Hugh Scott treated everybody equally. It didn't matter to him if you were a judge, a mayor, a senator, or maintenance worker. All were treated with respect. It didn't matter if you were a Rhodes Scholar or a convicted felon. Hugh Scott believed everybody was entitled to be treated with dignity. After Judge Scott's death, the flags of both of our courthouses were lowered to half-staff. It was a somber task for those responsible for carrying out that duty. Many tears were shed that day because of the enormity of the loss being recognized. That flag has now been placed in a frame and will soon be presented to Judge Scott's family as a gift from all of us in our court who truly loved him. Dr. Martin Luther King once prayed, "Use me, God, to take who I am, who I want to be, and what I can do, and use it for a purpose greater than myself." Judge Hugh Scott lived by the principles articulated by Dr. King. Although we're here tonight to acknowledge the professional achievements of Judge Scott, those alone did not define this man. Hugh Scott was a loving and caring man who valued his friends and loved his family. He cherished the love of his life, Trudy, and was not embarrassed to demonstrate that fact. The photo of his swearing-in ceremony as United States Magistrate Judge captures him looking straight in the eyes of his bride, acknowledging that his success was their success. He never missed the opportunity to say how proud he was of his sons, Hugh Jr. and Everett. He readily displayed photos of his grandson, Everett, while grinning from ear to ear. You see, Hugh Scott appreciated the balance between his professional and his personal life, and he excelled at both. Thank you, University of Buffalo Law School, for recognizing this wonderful lawyer, judge, leader, mentor, husband, father, and friend. As much as we will miss his wisdom, advice, and wonderful spirit, we can be comforted in knowing that he will be rewarded for a life well lived. He has left a lasting impression on this community that will be felt by future generations. That mischievous twinkle in his eye will remain a comforting memory to all of us who had the good fortune to know and to love him. In his speech, "I Had a Dream," Dr. Martin Luther King stated, "I look to a day when people will not be judged by the color of their skin or by the content of their character." The Honorable Hugh Benjamin Scott is a realization of that dream. Because of the way he lived his life, loved his friends and family, served his community, the world is a better place. It's been nearly 3 months since we lost this gentle soul. Judge Scott's good friend and colleague, Judge Ken Schrader, says Hugh is sadly missed. Indeed, he is. They say time heals all. Well, it'll take a long time to get over this loss. However, we're all richer for having Judge Hugh Scott in our life, and in his name, let us pledge to carry on his good works.
Judge Geraci, thank you so much. The depth and global nature of your comments will remain with us for many years to come. It's actually very nice that this event is being recorded. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can just take a moment as part of my responsibility as Master of Ceremonies, and I won't take more than 2 minutes to tell you a little bit about my relationship with Judge Scott. See, I didn't know Judge Scott long enough to have gone to high school with him, or college, or even law school. I met him many years after that, after having graduated from UB Law School, gone back to New York, and then come back to Buffalo. When I came back to Buffalo in 1985 as an assistant U.S. attorney, through the encouragement of a number of friends, I was encouraged to meet and get to know Judge Scott. And so I reached out to him. He was a newly minted judge on the city court, and I was a newly minted AUSA, and we were both very, very busy. We played what was later known to be phone tag for about 6 months before we finally met by accident at an event. And I walked over to him, and he walked over to me, and with that twinkle in his eye that so many have described today, he said, "I know who you are." And he just smiled, and we both laughed. He said, "Come on over to Chambers one day. Let's get to know each other." And I did that, and we became fast friends. And as many of you know, I have had the honor of enjoying some very wonderful opportunities as a lawyer over the years. And during the course of that time, there was always a small group of people that I sought guidance from in making difficult but what turned out to be wise decisions. And Judge Scott was one of those people. And he and I were quiet about that. But one thing was, whenever I went to talk to him about an opportunity, for some reason that I'll never understand, he always knew ahead of time what I was going to talk to him about before I even told him. And we'd sit in his office or his chambers, and we'd mull it around a little bit, and he'd say, "You know what? I think that's a good idea. You should do that." So in many ways, he gave me the advice that allowed me to make some very important decisions in my life. And for that and his friendship, I am forever grateful. I've heard a lot of things, a lot of adjectives tossed around tonight to describe Judge Scott, but I'm going to give you one that I've heard no one else say, but I think everybody will agree with. In addition to being humble and bright, a great family man, a great lawyer, and a great friend, Judge Hugh B. Scott was one of the coolest guys I ever met in my entire life. And we're all going to miss him. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, I now want to call upon Dean Abramowski and Ann Joint to co-present the Jekyll Award posthumously to Judge Hugh Scott. His sons Hugh and Everett will accept the award on their father's behalf.
Thank you, Michael. The University at Buffalo School of Law and the UB Law Alumni Association proudly present the 2021 Edwin F. Jekyll Award posthumously to the Honorable Hugh B. Scott, class of 1974.
It is presented in recognition of his extraordinary contributions to the law. The Edwin F. Jekyll Award is the highest honor the UB School of Law and the Law Alumni Association can bestow.
Throughout Judge Scott's distinguished career as a lawyer and a jurist, he earned the respect and admiration of his colleagues on the bench and the bar. His integrity and commitment to the law epitomize the highest values and ideals of the legal profession.
The law school is especially proud of Judge Scott's strong commitment to the advancement of minority students, as he mentored hundreds of students and young lawyers. He held numerous leadership roles in Buffalo educational, human service, and civil rights organizations and agencies.
A longtime adjunct professor at the law school, Judge Scott served as an emeritus member of the Dean's Advisory Council. By virtue of his character, leadership, and many accomplishments, Judge Scott brought honor to the law school, the university, and the legal profession.
Good evening. My name is Everett Scott Sr., Hugh B. Scott Sr.'s youngest son. I want to thank you all for recognizing, celebrating, and honoring him for such a prestigious award. We are so very proud of our dad. The Edwin F. Jekyll Award takes just a little bit of the sting away in this very difficult time, knowing how much he was appreciated for his contributions, ideals, and character. If my dad were here, he would be overwhelmed with joy and gratitude. I know that he would humbly accept this award and urge us all to continue doing good deeds for those in our community. My dad leaves behind some very big and stylish shoes to fill. His legacy will be hard to match. My father was not only a great judge and a leader, he was a hero to my brother and me and so many others. When I look at my own young son, Everett Jr., who's now 2 years old, I realize how much I've learned from him and how much I will miss talking to him about Evie and how much he was like me when I was a baby. I'll miss our motorhead talks, trips to the driving range, weekend bike rides, ski trips, and go-kart outings. We will also unfortunately miss the opportunity for Dad to meet Hugh's children and my second child due in July. Excuse me. My dad showed us how to be good, hardworking men, a great dad, and how to raise a family. Hugh Benjamin Scott was brilliant, humble, firm, compassionate, courageous, honest, supportive, dependable, encouraging, and patient, and most of all, loving. Dad made sacrifices for us every day. He taught us how important it was to have good moral character, never give up, go the extra mile, keep your word, value integrity, make good decisions, and be well-rounded members of society. Though these were lessons we learned at home, his
His values also rang true as it relates to being a great judge. I'm confident that he brought these virtues and principles with him to work every day, and subsequently had a huge impact on the many lives he touched. Judge Hugh Scott understood that everyone makes mistakes and that people deserve a second chance and space to learn and grow from their errors. He also made it clear that repeat offenses would not be tolerated. It was always easier to just do the right thing growing up because we knew that he would just sniff us out or find out whatever we thought we were getting away with somehow. Nothing got by him. He always said, no excuses. It's the life of a judge's kid, I suppose. In thinking about the impact Dad had on his family, his work, and the community, I just pray that I can be a fraction of the man and father he was. I have flashes in my memory of Dad and my son from when we would travel to Buffalo to visit. The moment they saw each other, they'd instantly light up and smile ear to ear. My son would make rounds to hug and kiss everyone, but then it was straight to Baba. Evie would call out for his Baba all the time, but especially when we picked him up from the nanny, demanding we get his Baba on FaceTime and listen to B. Brown, aka James Brown, one of Dad's favorite artists. Since Dad passed, I reflect on his life and most of all, the immense love he showed my son. They really adored one another. I think about the special moments they shared together and how crucial that bonding time was for both of them. I just wish that more people in the world had someone to call their Baba. I have a feeling we would be living in a much better place. We miss you. Love you, Dad.
I would like to echo Everett's sincere thanks to the University of Buffalo Law School and the Alumni Association for giving our dad the Edwin F. Jekyll Award. This award means so much to our family because we know how much UB Law School meant to our dad. It was the beginning of his formal journey into law, and he made sure that he was there to help other young people begin their journey into the profession in a way that he thought would be the most impactful and meaningful. As a kid, I remember him going to teach class after work, and then later how excited he was to bring his students to his courtroom. I remember hearing from friends of mine that attended the law school about how hard my dad was as a professor, but that everyone, for some reason, always wanted to take his classes. As tough as my dad could be, he was exponentially more caring. We always knew he was looking out for our best interests. Our friends knew that he cared about them too, and he always had high expectations. He believed that people in general, when they know you care, they never really want to disappoint you. People would naturally do better for him because of what he demanded of himself. He worked to ensure that our family, friends, our community were all inspired to do more for themselves and others. He led by example, and there were so many lessons that he taught us, but setting high expectations, removing boundaries and limitations, and ensuring that every generation raised the bar, those were his guiding principles. I'm sure that they were received by his students, and they're forever ingrained in us, and we too will pass them down. I know that we're here today to honor our dad for what he has done for the law school, the legal profession, and our community. But my mother, Trudy, Everett, and I can't begin to tell you how much he's done for our family and how much he means to us. He never missed a soccer game or a parent-teacher conference, even though that might have been a little easier at the time. We would ski every weekend, take family trips, bike rides, the list goes on. It was very easy to forget how much he meant to everyone else because he was always there for us. We were always his priority. More important to him than his own success really was the achievement of Everett and I, our friends, the neighborhood kids, and his students. One of my close friends said that our dad was the first successful Black man that he ever looked up to, and that my dad never made him feel any different, even though he was coming to our home from the projects. He always taught us that we were no better than anyone, but that no one was any better than us. He really is our hero, and I really thought he was invincible, as smart and as strong as he was. And even as he dealt with amyloidosis and everything that it took away from him, he never complained. Always kept his head up and even continued to work. Always doing what he could to provide the best example for Everett and I. Everything that Everett and I have become is a direct result of the example and investment that he and our mom made in us. Thank you, Mom, for all that you have done. And in closing, I'd like to thank you all for honoring our dad and would ask that we all continue to do the work to ensure that we raise the bar for the next generation of kids in the city of Buffalo and UB Law students. We would ask that you consider donating to the Minority Bar Association Foundation for a scholarship in his name. And we'd like to sincerely thank our family, friends, and everyone in the community that supported us during such a difficult time and that have provided strength and love for our mom. Thank you to the law school, the presenters, and Eileen for honoring our hero. We love you and miss you every day, Dad. Thank you.
Everett, Hugh, thank you both so very much for your wonderful remarks. First of all, for me, it's so good to see both of you again. I'm so happy that you're both doing so well. It is my distinct honor to be here today, just by luck of having received the award a year ago. I get a chance to take part and rather than just be a spectator. This is a wonderful tribute to your dad, to your mom, and to your family. And as I said earlier, ladies and gentlemen, this event is being recorded. And from what I've heard tonight, I am really happy that that's the case. And at this time, that brings our program to a close. Thank you everyone for attending. Much appreciated. Congratulations to the Honorable Judge Hugh B. Scott. Good night, everyone.